Hey, it's Inigo here. Welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to do a video talking about Finnish eating, the way Finnish people eat and what their diet kind of looks like. I think for the most part it's pretty much the same as what I'm used to in the UK and other countries I've visited. But there are a few kind of characteristically Finnish things that I think are kind of interesting in Finnish eating. So I guess the first thing to start with is in England, and I guess in quite a lot of other countries, you only really consider kind of 3 meals a day as the norm. And sometimes you might have snacks, but it's not really built into your meal plan, let's say. And you'll just have kind of 3 main meals, and then maybe snacks will go in there somewhere. Whereas in Finland, there are actually 5 specific kind of meal times. So the first one is breakfast, or it might be called aamiainen, or aamupala. That's kind of like very early in the day, maybe like 8 a.m. or earlier. Then that's followed by lunch or lounas, and that kind of comes around 11 or 12 o'clock. So a little bit earlier than we'd probably eat lunch in the UK. I think in England you probably start at 12, but it can be 1 or sometimes later than 1 o'clock. It's not too uncommon, especially from my experience in jobs. People sometimes might not eat their lunch till 2 o'clock, and that's fairly normal. Anyway, after lunch you've got välipala, which is kind of like your first snack meal. We don't really have that in the UK, so this would be kind of an extra meal that we don't have or we don't schedule in. And then there's dinner, which in Finland is called päivällinen. I think also sometimes might be illallinen, like a bit of a later dinner. Again, I think that's usually kind of earlier than we would normally eat dinner in the UK, so maybe by 5 o'clock you're having dinner, whereas in England I think maybe 6 is kind of normal, and sometimes people might not eat dinner till later. And I'm half Greek, and I know meal times, like if you're eating dinner in Greece, it can be really late, and I think partly just because of the heat of the day and everything kind of starts a little bit later, so people kind of they're chilling and outside late in the day. And then there's the 5th meal, which is iltapala, which is like an evening piece. Pala is piece, which again we don't really have in England. I suppose we would have dessert sometimes, but I guess we kind of consider that as part of the dinner. Obviously comes after dinner, not the same. But whereas iltapala, from my experience, it's separate. You definitely have a break between the 2 meals. You don't usually sit there and eat dinner and then finish dinner and have iltapala. You will usually have dinner, have a chill, for maybe an hour or a bit later, and then have your iltapala. So I'll kind of talk about the different meals in Finland and explain kind of what people eat generally from my experience. I'm not Finnish and I've not lived in Finland for that long or spent that much time in Finland, but this is kind of what I've noticed. So to start with would be breakfast, or aamiainen, aamupala. I've got a few things here. So I think typically in Finland you'll go one of 2 options. One option will be porridge or puuro, and it's pretty similar to what you might have in England. So you might have it with jam or hilo in Finland, maybe some berries and things like that, a banana. Pretty normal. Again, what we would typically have in England. But something that I've started using with my porridge is this. So this is specifically blueberry, mustikakeitto, but essentially these are mehukeitto, which is like juice soup, the translation. And it's kind of hard to describe. It's kind of watery, maybe a little bit syrupy as well. But you actually kind of pour this onto your porridge, and I love it. It's quite different, I guess. Obviously, like, it means that all of your porridge is kind of flavoured, and you don't really have to mix any jam in there. It's quite, yeah, again, it's quite different. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's really nice and definitely something that people should try. I don't know if it's actually a Finnish thing. If anyone's watching this, maybe you can let me know. But that's something that I really enjoy and have quite a lot. I typically will have porridge myself. But then the other option would be to have some kind of bread with butter, cheese, and then maybe some cucumber, tomato, sometimes even pepper. And the kind of bread that you typically will see generally is rye bread. So I've taken these from the freezer, so I mean, they look pretty similar, but yeah, you can see that ruis palat, which to my understanding is just rye pieces. Pala with a T is kind of plural. Ruis palat. We've got these ones here, and then we also have, I can't remember what these are called, leisumies, which is, these are actually really nice. The taste is really, really good. These are basically rye again, but just round. I think the main difference between the UK, anyway, and Finland is that they use a lot of rye here in Finland, whereas in the UK you have a lot of kind of wheat breads. I think, so I've got another, this is probably a bit more typical of a look for English bread. But even this is kind of bread that I eat quite a lot. But this is actually rye, 100% rye, you can see, hopefully, 100% rye. So even this kind of soft sliced bread is also rye. And that's very common in Finland. So those would be your kind of typical breakfast options. And again, that's aamiainen or aamupala. So next would be lunch or lounas. So I guess typically you could probably eat, again, the bread. I suppose, again, probably quite normal stuff. So sometimes you see people getting salads from a store, like from a salad bar. That looks quite common to me. Or people might go, like if they're working, they might go to a fast food restaurant and get a burger. The kind of the normal stuff that you might see. Sandwiches, again. Although interestingly, I feel like they don't really sell so many sandwiches. So in England, there's like a culture. There's like this meal deal culture where you get a drink and a sandwich and a snack, and it's usually, I think they've gone up in price a bit, but they're usually around £3.50 to maybe £5 at certain stores. Whereas here, your lunch options, if you're out, are quite different. You're not going to be getting sandwiches usually. It's kind of the typical kind of restaurant food that that you can get anywhere. But I think traditionally, something I like quite a lot, although this, maybe not this specific one, is what people in Finland typically have, but this is hernekeitto, which is pea soup, and it's really, really popular in Finland. Typically people will have this as well. I think there'll be pieces of carrot and also some meat in it. That's more traditional, but I don't really eat meat, so I just stick to this one. And then you mix it with Finnish mustard, which is known as sinappi, and this is my favourite. So every time before I lived here that I went to Finland, I would come home with like 3 cans of this and like 3 tubes of this, and it would be gone within the first week that I'm back in the UK. This is unbelievable. Like, the difference between mustard here and in England is very different. Or the difference is very different. It's very noticeable. I think this is a little bit like sugarier. I can see probably like the third ingredient is sugar. So maybe that's why it tastes a bit different. But anyway, this is really, really good. And you mix it with hernekeitto, and they're really, really good. Another thing is lohikeitto, which is like a salmon soup, and that's quite traditional here as well. I don't even know if I've tried it, to my knowledge, but I imagine people might have that traditionally as a lunch. But yeah, that's kind of typical, normal, the same as a lot of other places, but there are a couple of things that Finnish people might have traditionally. The next thing is the välipala, which is kind of your first kind of snacky meal, let's say. So I'd say there's kind of 3 main meals and 2 snacky meals. With the snacky sort of meal, I should say it's very common for people to have coffee here. So I think it's the biggest consumer of coffee per capita. People drink coffee here so much. Like strong coffee too. And actually they would have that with breakfast typically as well. So if you're in Finland, you can expect to have coffee for breakfast or at breakfast. So I guess you can have a couple of different things. For these snacky meals, I think there's typically like a savoury option and a sweet option. So sweet option, as I don't have any examples, I'll kind of explain it. But there are these kind of like cinnamon buns that are very traditional in Finland called pulla, or another name is korvapusti, and they're slightly different, those two things. But for anyone outside of Finland, you probably would think of them as the same thing. And they're kind of like cinnamon rolls, really. Sometimes have a bit of cardamom in them as well. They're amazing, really, really tasty. You can get them everywhere. Any kind of supermarket will have them inside the bakery. So whether you're at not even just the Finnish supermarket, so not just S Market or K Market or Prisma or K City Market or anywhere, but even kind of Lidl will have them. Yeah, those are consumed a lot everywhere. So you might have those, I guess, maybe kind of blueberry pie, mustikapiirakka. I've had that before. My wife's grandma is very good at making mustikapiirakka. So that's another one that you might potentially find. And then the next thing is, again, along with sinappi and hernekeitto, this is my favourite Finnish food. I'll put a picture of kind of what they look like here somewhere when they're made. But these are called riisipiirakka. So this is a cold one. Yeah, they're kind of like, we have nothing like this in England, really. For a long time, I've kind of been trying to figure out how to describe it, but I have nothing really to compare it to from from England. But basically, and I've got like a package here. I don't know. I usually buy them, these ones. You buy them from the refrigerated section. But again, you'll find those kind of everywhere in Finland, like all the different shops, and you can buy them from the bakery and you can eat them straight away from the bakery. And traditionally, well, actually, you can kind of see on the packaging. So you can put things on there. Again, like I said, I don't really eat much meat, but you can put meat on there. You're always going to put butter on there. Always put butter on it, and it tastes so good with butter. You can put cheese. Again, you can put cucumber, maybe some tomato or pepper. They're so good. I usually just eat them with butter, sometimes with a bit of cheese. But those are so good. And there are also potato versions of these. And again, my wife's grandma's made me some of those too. And they're really, really nice, but they're probably even more savoury. These are savoury, but when you put butter on them, they do taste sort of, I don't know, close to being sweet. They're really delicious. They taste kind of more like a pastry, but to kind of explain what they are, they're like rye flour around the outside, And then there's some kind of like rice in the middle. I guess you could probably see. Again, we don't really have anything like this in England. But what you do, I don't know if there's another way to make them. I guess when you've made them yourself, you don't have to put them in the microwave. But when you buy them cold, you put them in the microwave for about 2 minutes. And then, well, maybe, I don't know. I put them in for 2 minutes and then add some butter. And they're so nice. They're really soft. Sometimes the outside's a little bit chewy. And like, I guess it's kind of like rice pudding, but I don't really like rice pudding and I love these. I think rice pudding's a bit kind of creamy. These aren't so creamy, but I guess the only way that you'll know what they taste like is to go and taste them. So if you're ever in Finland, you have to try them, and you have to try them with, well, just butter at least. Those are so good. So I guess those are kind of your typical things for Välipala. I guess also to go along with the riisipiirakka, there's also, which again probably would go back to lunch, but there's another Finnish traditional kind of pastry called lortsi, which I've had before, and you can have like a sweet one or a savoury one, and essentially it's kind of like a pasty that we would have in England, but the pastry is like really soft. I'm not. I don't really know too much about food, so I probably wouldn't be able to explain it very well. But I think in England, like the pastry is very crispy. It's like puff pastry, whereas in Finland the pastry is like kind of soft and chewy. And again, it's sort of like a pasty, but you can have like a blueberry one, a strawberry one, an apple one for the sweet ones. And then, similar to like a real pasty in England, you can kind of get a vegetable one with mixed vegetables, or one with like mixed vegetables and meat. Those are really good. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to mention that because that's another thing that I've had, which is really good. There is something else that I'm thinking of as well. I can't remember the name, but it's kind of like a donut with kind of vegetables inside. It sounds really weird. But again, you have it with the mustard. I'll probably find it. I think it might be vihispiirakka. It's like it is really like a donut, which is crazy. It's like a donut, but with like savoury stuff in the middle, and it's so good. Like I really think, like knowing England, I feel like they could sell those at like football matches, and people would buy them all the time. They're kind of, I don't know, they're so good. And again, you can have them with this. Interestingly enough, again, pop them in the microwave. I feel like there's a lot of kind of cold snacks that you can buy here in Finland, and you just whack them in the microwave. I never really use the microwave much in England, but with rice pies, definitely you need a microwave. But yeah, okay, so I'll move off Välipala. And then the next one is päivällinen, or like I said, I think illallinen is like a later version of dinner. Ilta is evening, and illa is like another version. I think I could be saying this completely wrong. In that case, well, you can give me a thumbs down. I don't know, or comment in the comments. But for dinner, it's pretty much the same. So again, you could maybe have the soups that I've mentioned earlier. You probably wouldn't have the breads. Obviously, it's a bit too light of a meal. But again, you probably have kind of like pasta, rice, spaghetti, vegetables, any kind of typical stuff that I've had in other places. One thing that I know of that I've had here, which is really good, which is traditional Finnish, is called macaroni-laatikko. Macaroni, obviously, we know that in England. Laatikko is like a box, and it basically translates to like a macaroni casserole, which again maybe is like macaroni cheese that they have in America, but probably a bit different. Again, I'll try and find a picture and kind of pop it on the screen, but that's so good, and you have it with loads of like ketchup. It's really good. traditional Finnish. So if you're ever in Finland, definitely try it. And I think traditionally, especially if you're in the south where I'm in Helsinki, you'll have a lot more fish. So you might have a lot of fish in your diet. Whereas if you're in North Finland, up in Lapland, they do actually eat reindeer. So that again might be part of the diet there. Obviously not something that I've tried. I've not been to Lapland yet, but would like to go at some point in the future. But yeah, I've heard of like people having like a reindeer pizza even. And I think like meatballs or soups with reindeer in as well is kind of common in North Finland. But yeah, the dinner is pretty varied and pretty standard for I think most countries. And then the last meal is iltapäivä, and again ilta evening, pala piece. So it's like your piece in the evening, a little piece of food. It probably does resemble quite similarly välipala, but probably you're more like, well, I think every time it's going to be a sweet option. So välipala, you could have sweet or savoury, but iltapäivä, I've only ever had a savoury iltapäivä. So you're probably going to have pulla or korvapusti. You have some kind of pie, so piirakka, mustikkapiirakka, maybe some cakes. I've had cookies, like Oreos or other kind of. I know there's Finnish brands that make kind of like Oreos as well. Marianne, I think. No. Oh god, I don't know. No, I think Marianne is actually like a candy. I don't know, but anyway, cookies are also an option. But yeah, that's kind of your typical cookies, cakes. Oh, you could maybe have. I don't know if you could have riisipiirakka for iltapäivä. That's a good question. If anyone knows, you can definitely comment about that. But yeah, that's kind of it. Those are the different meals. I'm trying to think if there's anything again that's like quite traditional. I suppose there's kind of candies and chocolates, but maybe I'll save that for a different video. Drinks wise, coffee is very common. I don't think there's anything else which is like really interesting. I would probably say tea isn't so good here. So in England, I find tea's really, really good. I think evidently people care a lot more about coffee here. So maybe that's why people are not really bothered about tea because they drink so much coffee. But yeah, I think that's everything. Obviously leave comments below. Let me know what you think. If anyone knows whether the kind of fruit soup, mehukeito, is actually Finnish, or if it comes from another country, or what. If anyone knows, let me know. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.